Hello and welcome to Tando's Parlor. I finally decided on a name, and how I came about the name is I was trying to think of a lovely word that describes a space that women can feel comfortable to enter and talk and converse and swap ideas and gossip and create. This isn't to say that I want my channel not to be enjoyed by men, or that they can't get anything out of it, or that they can't enter the conversation or enter the room. What it means is this space is a space that's safe for women first and foremost, as that hasn't always been the case for us historically. I think it's okay to have more spaces and or more words or any of those things. That sort of, I think it's okay if there are spaces that are specifically for women to feel safe, because I don't think we're in a place in society yet where we can just rejoice that we are equal beings or treated equally or whatnot. But that's not really what my conversation today is going to be about. I've been spending plenty of time alone, giving me lots of time to think, and I have found ever since I reached 27, I've been doing a lot of reminiscing about my 20s and how I've spent them and how everything that I've done up until now has led to this exact place where I'm at now, with this exact level of self-confidence, self-love, self-assurance, and at this place where I can finally enact some of my bigger, wilder dreams that I allowed myself to try and forget. I reminisce a lot on how I came to be so self-confident, and I think that's sort of one of the things I really want to talk about today. But this is unscripted, so I don't really know where this conversation is going to go, but come along the ride and let's see how we go. As I said in my very first, I was going to say episode, first post on YouTube, it would be hard for me to have a personal channel where I don't talk about how my spirituality is sort of integral to the person that I am today. So that, expect that. I don't know if I've introduced you yet, but this is Sunny. Sunny would like to listen on the conversation because she too could learn something. She teaches me things all the time, and I think she's open to learning things from me as well. So that's a beautiful working relationship that we've got. Anyway, I feel that, honestly, I feel like I was born with confidence. It's not to say it's not something I've built, worked on, something I've lacked, but even in my earliest memories of myself and my self-expression, I was always quite vivacious, very loud, bold, big, and someone who enjoyed being the center of attention, someone who enjoyed having inside jokes with people, and not afraid to start new things or enter new spaces. I do feel like I had that even at an early age. But I can see how, with time and with life and interactions with different adults, through trauma and through the good and the bad, but mainly the bad, I can see how that burning flame, that I like to call it, that I was born with, really kind of diminished. And I think as a teenager, despite how I came across and despite how everyone wanted to remind me that I was weird because I liked books and I liked smut, um, and even though I liked to wear my skirts right below the knee, in my earlier teenagehood, even though people liked to point out my differences, I felt this like ever burning flame. Even though it was small, by the time I was a teenager, it was barely a flicker. I just felt, why should I not aim for confidence always? In the same way that people who meet me, I've had people tell me that I remind them of sunflowers, or when people have been using words to describe me, they've described me as sunny or happy or optimistic. So being called positive and naturally optimistic, that's definitely one of the things I also feel like is sort of an inherent gift or flame that was gifted to me. And so growing up and when I was younger and people would ask me to give them tips and explain why and or how I do it. How do I appear so confident, and how do I walk in a room and do what it is that I do? I kind of felt like a fraud trying to give tips and tricks, because I felt like, yes, it's something I really work hard on. What I wanted to tell people when they asked me is, I feel like I have this really strong warrior spirit within me that I feel like is something that has probably come from all the women that came before me, probably all the people that came before me, but I feel almost epigenetically born into this confidence. But because I am also human, I can recognize how and what sources really caused major hits in my confidence. And that is something I did have to raise myself up by my bootstraps to try and maintain um, this positivity and this drive, right, toward self confidence. And because I felt this innate, I was born into this, I've always felt that it was my right to feel confident. And I guess I've always recognized that the people that are happiest are ones that work on themselves and are ones that are really grateful for the moment, are ones that work towards becoming their highest and greatest self, but then are also comfortable and embrace every stage up until they get to that level. And I just decided early on, I guess, that to me it made more sense, especially as someone who does suffer with depression and anxiety. It makes more sense for me to draw from that pool within me and make it much more of a lifestyle. Draw from within that inner gift and that inner blessing from my ancestors and claim it as my birthright. And it was through that intention that I set when I was quite young, that led me to continually working on my self-confidence. And now at 28, I feel this confidence so much more. I feel like right now, I feel the level of confidence that people thought I had when I was a teenager. And it's like, oh, if you knew me then and you know me now, there would be a marked difference. I mean, now I'm just love personified. I can still remember, I love to tell this story, when I first came to Australia and I moved to country Victoria, and me and my sibling went to a school that had 75 students. And so with the two of us, it became 77. And on our first day, there we were at recess, fully surrounded by the entire school. And I'm not exaggerating by that. I am talking about the students, not the teachers. And they all were shouting questions at me, seemingly in tandem. Different questions, too. Questions about, how is it you can speak English if you're from Africa? You know, are you a fast runner? Like, just think of like your typical sort of discriminatory, you know, anyway. And I realized that I had moved countries, where I came from a situation where I never had to think about my race or who I was in relation to the people around me in that racial way. So I'd changed environments, and I was quite a reckless child. I just did whatever I wanted, whatever felt right, damn the consequences. And I faced the consequences, and then I would just repeat dumb things over and over again. And I think it was until that move to Australia that I actually remember making a mental, an active decision to become a good role model for my brother and to become the best and highest version of myself for myself and for everyone around me. Because if everyone was determined to look at me and see someone different and something weird, then I made the decision that I would walk into every room proudly displaying my weirdness and standing 10 toes down on my person, because I figured that that would help my sibling not feel that he should make himself small for other people because he stands out. And such a small but important act that I think actually underpins the way that I have conducted myself as a teenager and into adulthood. And so I took that quite seriously. And so I decided then and there that I would be bold. And I can still remember some of my early criticisms when I first came into this country. I remember when I was in year 7, that was probably the beginning of it. And it honestly, I still get it every so often now that I'm an adult. But one of people's criticisms about me is that I laugh really loudly. I laugh really loudly. I laugh from the back of my throat. That like throaty chuckle, essentially. Cackle even. I think I probably cackle more than I chuckle. I'm definitely much more of a cackler. And back then, it irked me because also it was the language surrounding this complaint that I found disrespectful. I was being told that I laughed like a hyena and I laughed like a gorilla. And this is quite racial language, I think, for people so young, because this was coming from my peers. And I thought it was interesting that instead of looking at my expression of joy in its authenticity, they chose to look at it negatively. And interestingly enough, for as young as they were already using coded language that they probably didn't really fully understand, but they were already like associating me with animalistic traits, just because I'm black, which we love. So now that I'm older, though, I think that my laugh is a true expression of joy, and I don't hold back, you know? While other people may laugh and try to look cute and may laugh but self-consciously, when I'm laughing, I'm not thinking about the next person. I am truly expressing joy in the way that feels natural. And I think that outside of those haters, I've also had lots of people that tell me that I have a beautiful and infectious laugh. And I choose to believe that it is beautiful and infectious, and that any other person who is upset by it is probably just they themselves hold themselves back from fully expressing. And so when they are seeing me in my authentic self expression, they are intimidated by it. I was told when I was 12 from a trusted friend that she had a conversation with some boys at school and they had discussed that I was intimidating. So they told her that they would date her in a heartbeat, but not me because I was intimidating. And I was a little bit like, I don't know why you're telling me this. But I also kind of held it to heart because I was like, I'm a nice person. I don't know why you would be intimidated by me, but I don't think like that anymore. Once I reached 18 and I left home, I made it my mission to really throw myself into different situations, explore any interests, and also just take opportunities that already landed in my lap. Opportunities for me to do different things and for me to look at life a different way. So, for example, I went to uni, which I did drop out. But while I was in uni, the bulk of my friends were polyamorous slash ethically non-monogamous. And up until then, with my very sheltered Christian upbringing, the idea of polyamory was not something that I'd really entertained, despite the fact that culturally Zimbabweans can marry more than one husband or wife. Because I've spent more years here anyway, it wasn't like an active thought in my brain. But because I ended up being surrounded by so many people, I picked up so many cues. I learned so much about what it takes to have a healthy relationship with a person, let alone with multiple. And it was through experiencing these set of friends that really opened my world. I mean, a lot of them were quite much older than me. Like I was 18 hanging out with like 25 to 30-year-olds and getting a look in their world, and but not to my detriment. I always did things that I already knew that I felt an inclination towards, but what was holding me back was likely some shame, some long held religious shame. And I think engaging slowly in different things and starting to map out what I like and don't like was a really, really good step towards self confidence. And I think also another step that I took even before that was even when I was a teenager, I used to engage in things that scared me because I thought it was healthy. I have performed as a singer. a lot of times in my teenagehood. And people always enjoyed it and would be like, oh, I don't know if I could do it because I have stage fright. And it's like every time I had to go to perform, I was literally shaking with anxiety. And I can't think of a time I performed and I didn't feel that anxiety, but I did it anyway. And I think doing things like that also contributes to my self-confidence now, because now I encounter newness and I don't shy away from it. I'm not scared. I see it as an opportunity for me to learn more about myself. And I think when you look at yourself, maybe this works for me as a type A person, it might not work for you, but when I look at myself as the greatest project I will ever have to create, I find that to be really inspiring. And so the self-help books that I've read in my 20s that have led to me working on myself and doing shadow work and deciding what is or isn't important is a contributing factor to my self-confidence. I was actively not thinking that I was perfect. I was actively realizing that there was a lot of work that needed to be done, and I was actively realizing that the only person that could do such work would be myself. And I actively engaged. There's not a person who's met me at any stage of my life where I wasn't doing some sort of active shadow work, self-development, and talking about it out loud. Point me a person who says that I wasn't, and I will point you to a liar. um, so, having the courage to be disliked, honestly, is a muscle that I really practiced by allowing people to make fun of me and not letting it stop things that I wanted to do. It's not to say no one's ever affected me like that, because it certainly has occurred and it might be a contributing reason to why, excuse me, I'm not like a singer, or I never chased that properly as a career path. But in terms of like largely, I really got that practice quite early on. People made fun of me so much that it became normal that people will find the things that I do weird. And to this day, people still find things that I do weird. I mean, just last year in 2024, one of my friends, a newer friend, said to me, Tando, you have to be one of the more unique people I've ever met in my life. I don't think I've ever met someone like you. And that is actually quite a common occurrence for me. And so because I've become so used to it, I just do things and expect that whoever likes it will like it, and whoever won't will probably let me know, because people can't help themselves. And that's that on that. What I would like you to gather from this video is that your progress in life is about how much control you believe you have over the outcomes. And I think the more control that you believe you have, I think the better your outcomes and the more likely you are to impress yourself and achieve things that you want. And I say impress yourself because I think it is as important, if not more important, than impressing other people. I have grown more and more to appreciate my own opinion over other people's. And that's a result of a lot of deep, deep work and self-intimacy. And now I know myself so well that what I want goes, and less does the outside world really matter when it comes to my decision making. And I adore that. And when I meet older women, they only tell me that it gets better, it gets juicier, you get more in love with yourself and less caring about what other people think, and you become your more authentic version of yourself. If you want to be self-confident, you have to make the decision that you want to be a confident version of yourself, and then you have to make a plan. You can choose to look at it like it's faking it till you make it, but I choose to look at it like you think about the highest expression of yourself and what that looks like, what you want it to be for yourself, because that's what matters. and then you materialize it, and you do so by practicing. While someone might looking at it as like faking it till you make it, I look at it as practicing. You're practicing confidence until you get to a place where you feel it intrinsically. And so you practicing the actions of looking confident and not letting things bother you. When someone says it in the moment, if you're used to jumping down someone's throat, allowing yourself to just take a step back and go, okay, that's their opinion and they're entitled to that. It's none of my business. And watching the flow on effect of that over time, you gain confidence because you're seeing direct evidence. You know, when I said I look at myself like a project, I really do. And I look at everything that I'm trying to tackle, every little piece of the puzzle, because I can only do one at a time. I'm only a human being. But whatever I'm currently working on for myself, I like to look at it like a scientist. And I like to go, okay, this is the hypothesis of like, you know, what I believe the situation to be. Maybe this is the outcome that I would like. What are like some actionable steps that I can do towards that? And then when you do the actionable steps, maybe you record within your body intuitively how you feel when you do these steps, or you journal about it or whatever. And it's through that evidence of you doing the thing that you planned and set out to do. And then as you get the data back, you make adjustments and you go, okay, this didn't quite work out this way, so I'm going to like do this a little bit less, and I'm going to increase when I do this and that and the third. And that is how you're developing a relationship with yourself, developing trust, developing confidence. So I hope that all kind of makes sense, because I hate that I had to film this twice, but it do be. Say goodbye to Shani. Bye, Shani. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.